In this SAT problem, you're asked how many solutions does this have? Solutions means where these things intersect, right? Where do they intersect? So you can see they're intersecting, this guy's intersecting here, this thing is intersecting here. But what they're saying is the solution means all three of them, this line, and then this parabola. The only place they're intersecting is this particular place here, because that's where all three of them meet. Here only two of them are meeting, and here only two of them are meeting. So the answer is 1, because it intersects only in one point. Now here's my question for you. In this set, you've got the rectangle, you've got a circle, and you got a straight line. How many places does this intersect? How many solutions does this have? So post your answers in the comments. Let's see if you fully understood this problem. Remember, all three of them should intersect. All right, in this problem is fairly straightforward if you can just FOIL it correctly. So let's do the box method, the table method for multiplying these two numbers. So how do you do it? This and this multiplied gives you this value. So you've got x and x squared gives you x cubed. And then you've got 5a. Just write it down here. Right? Then you've got a and negative b, which gives you negative ab, and x multiplied gives you x squared. Then ax times 4 gives you plus 4ax. Then 3 times 5x squared gives you 15x squared, like this. Then you've got 3 and negative b, which means negative 3bx, and 3 and 4 gives you 12. Now, what you want to do is you want to be very smart and choose the correct power of x. And what's the easiest power of x? It's this one. Because when you combine these two guys, you're going to get 15 minus ab x squared, right? So 15, you can even write it like this, 15x squared minus abx squared. And then you compare it to the x squared of this guy, which is negative 9x squared. Now you just get rid of the x squareds. So this is the standard matching the coefficient strategy. And so therefore you get 15 minus AB is equal to negative 9. So subtract 15 from both sides. So minus minus, this is gone. So therefore you get AB, negative AB is equal to negative 24. And then minus minus becomes a plus plus. So plus AB is equal to plus 24. And you got this as your answer. You don't even need to find the A or the B separately. You just need to be smart about this and you can multiply it and get your answer. Now it's your turn to find the value of not AB, but BC. So where do you see BC in here? Just compare the coefficients and you've got your answer. You don't need to find any A or B here. Just find out where's the BC, which is here. Compare it. Which of these parts are you going to compare it to? And then accordingly, find out the value of BC. Very, very easy to solve this problem. So if you solve this, I think you really understood this concept. So post your answers and let's move on. I like this SAT problem a lot because it teaches us a very important skill. And that is, if you see an x here and you see an x here, then one of the answers is just going to be x is equal to 0. And where do you see 0 here? 0 and 0, that means these are immediately out. Now, the other thing, if you see an x is equal to 0 and x on both sides, just get rid of the x's. And of course, when you get rid of the x's, you get 1 here. Now you just have to solve it. So 1 over x minus 3 is equal to 2 over 2. Of course, 2 over 2 is 1, right? So now let's plug in 2 here. What do you get? 1 over 2 minus 3. This is clearly a negative number, so it cannot be equal to 1. Now let's, of course, we know it's the second choice, but let's plug it in. 1 over 4 minus 3 is equal to 1 over 1, which is actually equal to this one. And so therefore, B is your answer. Remember, the main idea is x is equal to 0 here. Now it's your turn to solve this same problem, a similar problem of this type. Remember, if you have x's on both sides, you can get rid of them and you can solve the answer. You can find the value of x, but also the other answer is x is equal to 0. So that's already the answer. How do you find the other answer is my question for you. So let's see if you can solve this and comment your answers. Anytime you see the word equivalent to the expression, you just want to set x to be equal to 0. You can ignore this part, it's just meant to confuse you. X is equal to 0. So what do? You put x is equal to 0 inside here, which means you just get rid of all of these x's. You can just literally delete them like this. There's no need to even look at them. All of this is gone. And what are you left with? You're left with 1 over 1, which is 1. 1 over 1 is 1, plus 5. That gives you a 6. So this value is 6 here. And then what do you have over here? You've got 5 over 1, which is equal to 5. So that's out. Then 6 over 1, it's possible because this is equal to 6. And this is out and this is possible. So now just looking at this and 10 or 15 seconds, you've easily evaluated that only B or C are the possible choices. All right, so what do we do now? When we set x to be equal to 0, we were able to eliminate A and C, and B and D were the only possible choices. Now, what's the next easy number? X is equal to 1. Let's plug that in here. So when you plug that, you get 1 over 2, and then wherever you see an x, just put 1. 2 times 1 plus 1. So 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3. So you get 1 over 3 plus 5. Just let's leave it like this. And then what do you get over here? You get 2 times 1, which means this goes away, and you have 2 plus 6, which is 8 over, and this one is again 2 plus 1, which is 3. Remember, I'm eliminating it because it's a 1. So 1 times anything is itself. So you've got 8 over 3 over here. And then let's look at this part over here. You put 1 inside over here, you get 10 plus 6 gives you a 16, and this one gives you 2 plus 1 gives you a 3. Now you got to choose, is it 8 over 3 or 16 over 3? And of course, you've got 5 plus 1/3. So how do you do this one? You multiply by 3 on both sides like this. So you get 1 plus 5 times 3 is 16 over 3, and so therefore D is your answer. You can also do the common denominator way, where you got this 2x plus 1. So you can multiply this by 2x plus 1 and 2x plus 1. And then you can write 5 times 2 is 10x plus 1. And then you can add this value here to get 10x plus 5 here. So you get 10x plus 5 plus 1 is 6. And so you can still get the same answer this way. Okay, I'm going to change the problem now. And the problem is 1 plus 4 over 2x plus 1. So you can solve it either way. You can set x to be equal to 0 and eliminate quite a few choices, and then you can get your answer. Or you can multiply this by 2x plus 1 like this, and then cross multiply this, distribute this, and then add them and check your answer. So one of these is going to work. It's going to be the answer. So let's see if you can solve it. All right, this is a fairly standard parabola problem where you're asked the vertex. You're given the kind of like the vertex here, and these are all the vertex forms of the equation. Now, we've got a few videos explaining this in more detail, but for this shortcut kind of a problem, you just want to remember the formula is always y is equal to some number times x minus h squared plus k, and this h and k are the actual answers. So this 3 and 1 are just going to sit inside here. So you're going to get x minus 3 squared plus k, which is 1. And so you get y is equal to this block. Now this, just looking at this, you can eliminate this choice and this other choice over here. So you've got these two choices. Now what do? Now you want to plug in this. This is the second part of the problem. You eliminated these two choices. Now you just plug this in. Remember, this is your x and y, right? X always comes first. So you, instead of x, you put in 2. Instead of x, you put in 2 here. So you get 2 minus 3 squared plus 1. And then you want to put 5 inside over here. And then you maybe, let's look at the first one. So here, this block number is 4, right? And here it's nothing, which means it's a 1. So let's try it. 4. So 2 minus 3, that's negative 1 squared. So all of this becomes 1. And 4 times 1 gives you 4. So is equal to 4 plus 1. And that's equal to 5. And then you're all set. Of course, if you plug in this one in, you're not going to get the answer. You're going to get some other answer. So therefore, this is out and A is in, and it's the correct answer. All right. Now, my question for you is this. If we have this new parabola and then this vertex is negative 3 comma negative 1, then what's going to be inside? X plus, okay, it's a plus this time, how much? And then plus how much? So try to find out what is this value and then this value. This is just going to help you memorize the vertex form of the parabola. All right, so post your answers, and I think this will help you remember this parabola, this vertex form. Remember, this is called the vertex form of the equation a bit better. To solve this problem, you only want to remember one thing. What does this line look like, right? This line over here, it looks like a line that goes up like this. And in each of these, there's only one line like this. All this particular line that's going up. Of course, then obviously this other line is this other line which is going this way. But let's focus on this particular line, this one that's going from SoCal, South California to Boston. This way, this side, right? Then if you've got this y is greater than or equal to x plus 2. Anytime you see, you can even ignore this part. Y is greater than, it means it's the top part of this line. So that means you can just shade this part like this. You're going to shade this kind of like raindrops falling on a roof, on the roof of a house like this. All right, now the other equation, you don't even have to think much. It's obviously this one. It takes some time to actually find this equation, but you don't need to, because that's the only other one that's remaining here, right? And it's less than, because y is less than, right? This number in front of y is positive, so it's y less than. We don't even care all of these. It's just y less than, which means it's less than. So I've drawn this second line over here this way just to represent this particular line over here, right? And then what do you say less than means is below it. So I'm just going to draw horizontal lines like this now. So these horizontal lines over here, like so. And then you will see the place where both the blue vertical lines and then the orange horizontal lines intersect, right? That is your answer. So where do you see this happening? It's almost like the left part of the curve. So you see it's this part, this entire region, that is the answer. And there's only one place where it is, and that's B. And so B is your answer. All right, now here's the challenge problem for you. It was earlier, the first equation was greater than over here, but I've changed this and I've made this less than. So I've changed this to this equation now. Less than means it's going to be below it like this, right? This equation, it's going to be below this. And then the other thing that you want to remember is this other one, I've changed it and I've made it greater than, which means this guy, this other guy is greater than. It's like this. So now sorry, my bad, it's not this one, it's this one, and it's greater than this way. So which of these four answers is the correct solution set for this equation? Is the exact opposite. You can even think about it logically. Earlier it was this one, so can you guess the exact opposite will look how? Like how? So post your answers. I think it's going to be very easy for you and very instructive and helpful for you to actually go through this, and this is going to improve your score. So post your answers and ask me if you have any questions. Now here's the big deal about the SAT test, especially if this is a number which is like 15 more than 10. This equation with a square root can get quite complicated for you to solve. So you just don't want to square it. What you want to do is you want to plug in these values. That's the best way to solve this problem. So let's plug it in. So you've got square root of, let's plug in -1. So let's see, square root of -1 plus 2, the left hand side, -1 plus 2 gives you a +1. So therefore you get a +1 here. And then square root of 1 is just 1. So therefore the left hand side became 1. And then is this equal to -1? My bad. So this is a -1 here, and then the right hand side is a bit confusing. It's minus of x, and the x, we replace it parentheses -1. Now therefore you get minus of -1, that gives you a +1, and that works. So therefore -1 is clearly one of the answers, right? So therefore this is out and this is out. -1 works. How about +2? So let's plug that in. So obviously you can see here it's a negative, so negative of 2, and then on the left hand side, remember it's 2 plus 2. You're replacing this x with this 2 over here. 2 plus 2 gives you 4, so you're going to get square root of 4. But remember, for the SAT test and most of the tests, this square root of 4 is not going to be a negative value. It's always going to be positive. So really what you're checking is 2 equal to -2? It is not. Okay, it's very important for you to know that the square root of this number cannot be negative. It's a principal root. It's only the positive root. Okay, and so therefore -1 is the only answer, and this is out. All right, I'm gonna give you another challenge problem now, but instead of -x, you're gonna have a positive x. Right? Instead of -x, a positive x. So how would you solve this problem? Don't square it. Just plug in -1 to see if it works, and then plug in 2 if it works. And only one of them is going to work. So let's see if you can solve it, and post your answers. Remember, posting your answers will really help you gain the confidence of understanding this problem, and you'll remember it for many more weeks. All right, this is a crazy easy problem. The length is 4 centimeters. So this is the length, it's 4. The width is 9. And then this is the width, and then the height is 10. That's all. Length is 4, width is 9, and then the height is 10. And then what's the volume? Very easy. Surprisingly, it's number 16, which is a little bit, usually there are harder problems on this. Volume is equal to length times width times height. So just multiply them. 4 times 9 times 10. 4 times 9 is 36, times 10 gives you 360, and you're all set. Now here's a brain teaser for you. What about this thing? If I were to reduce this by 2, 4 became 2, right? 4 became 2, then what would be the volume? Can you figure this out without solving, without using this formula. All I've done is I've cut the length into half, like this part became half of it. So that's the hint for you. What would be the volume of this prism if I just cut it into half? It's related to this answer. So think about it logically and let me know. This is unreal. Question number 17 being this easy. You've got 4x plus 2, you got 2x plus 1. Do you see the relation? How 4 can become 2 and at the same time this 2 can become 1? You are simply going to divide everything by 2, 2 and 2 here. 4 divided by 2 gives you 2x. 2 divided by 2 gives you 1 and this is equal to 2. Boom, it's right there fallen on your lap. So 2x plus 2 is equal to 2 and that's your answer. This is shamefully easy. How can you solve this one now? 10x plus 5 is equal to 50. So remember, what's the relationship between each of these? So opposed to answers, what is 2x plus 1 equal to? This, can you believe it? This is an SAT question and at that too, we can even simplify it even further and solve it in less than 3 seconds. So post your answers. I want to see if you really got it. This is a very, very good problem to understand. What you're given is this kind of this wheel type, this type of a thing, this springing, this jumping thing. And then it's almost like somebody jumping like this, right? And then you've got this value to be f of x. This thing is called f of x. And then g of x is f of x plus 6. Means every place you've got this, it's 6 up over here is going to be here. Then this goes up here. So it's basically everything shifted up by 6 units. Every unit over here is moved 6 units. So it looks exactly like this curve, but only that it's moved up by 6 units. Almost like you took this and you translated, you dragged it up by 6 units. Now they're asking you what's the maximum value of this function, This is the g function and this is the f function. So how do you find the maximum value? Why don't we try to find the maximum value of f? You've got the maximum value of f over here, the topmost points, this one, and this one. What they mean by the maximum value is that the y coordinate of this point. So what's the y coordinate of this point? So think about it for a quick second. Yes, it's 2. So the maximum value of f is equal to 2. So what is the maximum value of g? Because g is equal to f plus 6, it's going to be 2 plus 6, which means this moved 6 places up, right? So of course that value is going to be 8, and so 8 is your answer. All right, so you know that the g function is just 6 units above f. Now my question to you is, what is the minimum value? What's the minimum value of this function? So remember, the minimum value of this function is right over here. So what could be the minimum value of this function? Again, think about it for a second. Again, this is the key over here for you. So post your answers. I think you totally will have understood this if you post your answers, or at least if you solve this in your mind. All right, let's move on to the next step. This is a very instructive problem. You've got PQR. So I'm going to just write down PQR. And they've said the right angle is at Q. So it's very important to know where the right angle is, like this. All right. Now, we already are seeing sine, so I've written down SOHCAHTOA over here. Now, what's the deal with sine? You've got sine is equal to 4 over 5. So let's remember, what is sine? Sine of r is equal to the opposite over hypotenuse. You've got this r here, and then what is the opposite and the hypotenuse of this? The hypotenuse is always easy, this part, this big guy, right? And then the opposite is the one that never touches it. Do you see how this side touches r, and this side also touch r? The only side that doesn't touch r is this, and that is always the opposite. Okay, so this is the opposite. Now the opposite side is over here, and then the hypotenuse is over here, but the sine is also given as 4 over 5. So you can simply take the opposite to be 4 and hypotenuse to be 5. So let's replace this. So the opposite now becomes 4, and then the hypotenuse becomes 5. So this became a 4 and a 5 here, and you want to find out what's this value. Let's call it A. Now, if you may remember it, this is a very important idea. It's a 3, 4, 5 triangle, but in case you don't know how to solve this, we're just going to solve this. 5 squared is equal to 4 squared plus A squared. And then you got 5 squared. This is the Pythagorean theorem because this is right angle triangle here. And so therefore you get 25 is equal to 16 plus A squared. You subtract 16 from both sides, minus 16. Like this goes away, and 25 minus 16 is 9. So you get A squared is equal to 9. Or in other words, A is equal to 3. So you write down A is equal to 3 here, right? And now what they're asking is, what is the value of tan of P? Again, where's P? That's the most important idea. P is not here. P is here. So you go over here first. And then what is tan? Tan is opposite over adjacent. So the tan of P is equal to opposite over adjacent. What's the opposite for P now? Is the one that never touches P. Both of these are touching it, right? So the opposite is the guy which never touches it. It's 3. And then what is the adjacent? It's 4. Remember, it's not opposite anymore. This is the adjacent for P, the thing that touches P. Okay, so it's 3 over 4, and that's your answer. Now, my question for you is very simple. What is the cosine of P? All right, the cosine of P. That should be very easy for you because cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. But then, if you're feeling that you want to be challenged more, what is cosine of Q? That's the hard one. So see if you can find both of these values and post your comments. And if you have any questions, just let me know and I'll help you with it. This is a beautiful SAT problem. You've got this curve here, this line, and then you're told that there's another line that's perpendicular to it. So, and that's called G. So this curve is F. Now perpendicular, let's think about this idea, this intuitive way of thinking about it, right? What's the slope of this line? It's 2 and 1, like this. You're going up, rise 2 and run is 1. So how does a perpendicular look like? The perpendicular looks exactly opposite. Instead of going up 2, you're going to go across 2. This is a new way of thinking for you. And then you went this way, you went up and left, you can go this way, right? And then you've got this point. So basically a perpendicular, you just flip the rise and the run. So it went from here to here because it has to pass through this point. And so if you connect it, it's going to go like this. And do you see how it's going to cut this point as well over here, this point and this point. And now what they're saying is, what is G of 0? So what is G of 0 is exactly the midpoint between 0 and 1. Remember, this is 0 over here, right? And this is 1 over here. What's the halfway of this halfway point? It's 0.5, and that's your answer. Of course, you can do y is equal to mx plus b and all of that, but there's no need to waste your time. This is a nice intuitive way of thinking about it. If this is the rise and run of this line, then the rise and run is almost like flipped over. It's a nice intuitive way of understanding perpendicular lines. And so therefore, this point over here is the y-intercept. Why? Because G of 0 is the y-intercept. Now here's my question for you. You can ignore this line altogether. How about this orange line here, and then a perpendicular that passes through this point? So how would you think about this perpendicular? It's 90 degrees, right? So the hint is right over here for you. How would this perpendicular line look like? Sometimes for the SAT, you don't need to solve the math problems using algebra. You can just visually think about it. So think about it logically and tell me, what is the y-intercept of the line that is perpendicular to this line? So let's see if you can solve it. Post your answers, and if you have any questions, I can help you with them.